This is kind of the video two. This is the kind of session one, which talks about the stage two recovery or one day at a time kind of recovery. And what I want to cover in this session is where do these concepts or dilemmas come from? And I think in order to do that properly, at least it was for me, I had no idea how to compare myself to anything. Everything that I believed I thought was normal. My attitudes, my approaches, the way I thought the world was run, and of course when you've only lived that way and you've only practiced that way, you kind of think that's the way it is, and then you get a little confused when you go out in the world and you try to practice these things you learned in the world, and we get in trouble, we get dilemmas, and we have things that bother us. But the way I like to talk about that, these are the dependencies. These are the things we're going to do, and I'd like to talk about the first 6 months of a person's life, kind of in a general way, and kind of in a way that things should have been normal. And the way I look at it is that when a person is created and they're in the womb and they become existence, they are actually in touch with everything. They are one with the universe. The universe is one with them. And in essence, the concept is they can't decipher the difference between them and everything else. I mean, they don't know the difference between their hand and someone else's hand, and they're in the womb, and everything is provided, and there's absolutely no doubt that they are at one with the universe. And then, of course, anywhere between 8 and 9 months after that, we have a terrifying situation when all of that knowledge, all of that understanding is changed, and we become born. And all of a sudden, this entity that we haven't been able to separate from the universe, is very rudely and very sometimes violently and very much a significant change in reality as we go outside. And all of a sudden, then we start to learn things. But there's one thing I like to look at in the first couple of months of any human being is that they are absolutely vulnerable. There is no doubt that they are very, very vulnerable. Some animals that are born, and as soon as they're born, they can get up and they can walk away. They can basically have different levels of self-sufficiency, but there's no doubt there are other things that are vulnerable, but there's no doubt that human beings are very vulnerable. And the one thing they learn at that time, and they will record that, it won't be recorded logical, because they don't have a logic part of their brain, they don't have a vocabulary, they haven't been able to attach phrases or words to things, but they will record how they sense things are on. And this human being is kind of a clean slate. It's a sponge that absorbs its universe and see what's going on. It's kind of like if you have a small child that's barely born, and if they say that something comes in and maybe the mom and the dad are having a kind of a quarrel, or the energy gets high or the energy gets low, but actually the newborn or the baby will start crying because it will sense that negative energy. Will sense that something's wrong. They will sense that there's conflict. But there's one thing that new created human being knows, is that it is absolutely vulnerable, that it is 100% dependent on the universe to take care of it. And of course, in the womb, it was taking care of it. When it's born, then it's understood. But that condition, that transition, will probably set the attitude that child has towards vulnerability. I believe that my birth was a little traumatic. I think there was a lot of drama. And of course, I learned one thing in the core of my existence. One thing is, don't be vulnerable. Do whatever you can to not be vulnerable. Do whatever it takes to not be vulnerable, because being vulnerable is a bad thing, because the universe will not take care of you. The one thing, the next stage that I think a little child gets to, and that is the stage of I know I'm vulnerable, I know I'm small, but I've got to get something to take care of me. I've got to learn how to get things that are outside of me in order to help me. And we call that codependency. From total dependency to codependency, and that is that I've got to develop some kind of thing. I've got to learn how to cry. I've got to learn how to do whatever it takes for something outside of me to take care of me when things aren't working out. When I'm in stress, I'm uncomfortable, or I'm scared, or something's bothering me, I've got to learn how to do that. And generally speaking, a newborn baby learns how to do that by crying or whining or controlling, and that's how they learn. And they do certain things, and people will pick them up if that's available, and they'll do certain things, and if no one picks them up, that's available. So what they learn about codependency. They learn that they have to, basic concept is part of creation, part of the universe, is learning how to get people outside of you, other people, things that are out in the go outside, to take care of you. And as that progresses, the child will become aware that that's not enough. That there will be a time when you've got to learn how to take care of yourself. Usually that's the age between 1 and 2. We call it the terrible twos. If you ever raised a child that's around that age, they have a desperate, instinctive need to do things themselves. They want to tie their own shoes, they want to feed themselves, they want to cut it, and they actually get adamant about it. And it's very difficult because they'll be the ones that will run out in traffic, or they'll run to do things, or they'll pick up knives or scissors. They'll do whatever it takes. But they have a desperate knowledge and a desperate need that they've got to learn how to take care of themselves, that there will be a time when people around them will not be available to help them, and they've got to learn how to take care of themselves. And that's what we call codependency. And the last part of it is that stage is around 2 years, they have to learn how to be independent. That means they've got to go inside them, they've got to learn how to take care of themselves. And as parents and as guardians or as people nourishing, we try to know that these people have to learn how to do that. And they have an ingrained need to do that. They need to learn how to feed themselves. They want to do the cooking. They want to do a lot of things. And you don't really have to convince them that they need to do those things, that they'll be instinctive. And then the last stage, which I call between the ages of 4 and 6, they'll have what they call interdependent. And that's basically the growing up and kind of learning the way of the world. And they know for a fact that first stage that there is a dependency, there is a vulnerability there, and all of life will always have that. And they're going to have to learn how to take care of themselves. One of the second ways they do that, of course, is to get people to help them. They learn how to ask for help. If the child was raised and that wasn't available or wasn't very convenient, they will be afraid of asking for help, and that will probably plague them for the rest of their lives. And then the last stage is they want to learn how to do it themselves. They'll have a deep need to do that. They want to do it their way, and they've got to sort that out. And those are the 4 stages that I believe that a human being goes through. The dependency, the codependency, the independency, and then the interdependency. And that usually happens in the first 6 years. And I think that's what the psychiatrists or the philosophers or whatever it is are talking about. And I have a little story that kind of represents that. I was raised out west, and there was the bears were in the woods, and most of the time a bear would have 2 cubs. And in the first stage of the little cub's life, they're almost attached to their body, and they're nourished, and they're nurtured, and they're taken care of. And there's absolutely no doubt that this little cub knows that they're loved and they're cared for and they're nourished. In the second stage of their life, as they begin to grow and get bigger, the mother bear will teach them a little bit of responsibility. And one of the primary things that she has, she'll have a way she grunts. She'll have a sign or a symbol that she has, and that's to tell the little cubs that when she gives that grunt, they go to the top of the nearest tree and they stay there until she comes back and asks them to come down. They will have to learn how to do that. It's blind obedience to authority. It's learning that there is something that they need to be concerned about and care about. And so she'll actually practice. She'll grunt, and they'll go to the top of the nearest tree. If they don't, she'll discipline them until they do. And then the third stage of a little bear's life is she teaches them how to feed and how to nourish themselves and how to interact and basically how to take care of themselves and do that. And at the end of it, one of the times at the end of this little stage, the mother bear will give that familiar grunt, and the cubs will go to the top of the nearest tree. And the mother bear instinctively knows that she needs to turn around, and she starts walking. And she walks so far away, she has to keep going farther away, and she knows she has to go so far that she will not be able to hear her cubs whine and moan and groan because they're up in the top of a tree. But she goes away. Now, these cubs are there, and basically life comes back. They'll get hungry, they'll get starved, they'll have basic instinctive needs to survive, and they'll be confused. And they'll try to, they'll go down the tree, and then they understand this, and they'll go back up. But eventually, because of sheer hunger, sheer survival, they will come down out of the tree on their own free will, and they will make a decision that they will get out of that tree. And in the nature kind of life is when those cubs hit the bottom of that tree and they hit the ground. At that time, they will be a grown-up bear. And that's what we're talking about. So, in essence, that's what I'm talking about the dependency, the codependency, the interdependency, and then being able to take care of themselves. Later on, if they run into the mother bear in the woods, it'll be another bear. There'll be some familiarity, but there isn't the thing that we have like in our human beings, that we have this connection of the mother and the fathering and all that. All they know is that mother bear gave their bears, her cubs, the best she could to teach them how to take care of themselves, and then she knows that she has to let them go, or she has to learn how to let go. I believe that all learning how to take care of yourself involves the letting go. And we have to let go of some of those basic things that we thought were always going to be there. The life cycle will be there, and I think every single human being has to learn how to let go, and has to learn how to take care of themselves, and has to learn how to make decisions on their own.